joining us to get into what really is going on in that Gulf. How much oil is coming out of the ground? Is there anything that can really be done for containment? Should we be burning those marshes? Why are there not tankers there? Should they build a berm? Can we actually stop this? The list goes on. There's a gentleman by the name of Dave Summers. In addition to being Dave Summers, Dave also operates a web property that I strongly recommend to you as a resource if you are looking to get better information and broader and more information about what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico. The website is oildrum.com, OILDRUM.com. Dave Summers joins us now by way of Skype. Dave, do you feel like anybody inside of the government, inside of BP, or inside of the media is delivering or capturing valid data when it comes to A, how much oil is coming into the Gulf of Mexico, and B, where that oil is and the damage that it's doing?
I think that they've got a fair handle on how much now, at least now they have a fair handle on how much could be coming out of the well going into the Gulf. Where it's going and what effect it have, I don't think they have that yet.
So give us your best information. How much oil has gone into the Gulf of Mexico? Put it in context for us, if you could, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. It's kind of hard to give you an exact number of how much in total has gone in. We know at the moment, based on a couple of 3 different calculations that you can make, that the flow rate of the well at the moment is somewhere in the order of 17 to 19,000 barrels a day. The estimate that came out this morning was, I think, 12 to 19,000. And I think at the present time, it's at the higher end of that. And I base that judgment in part on the fact that they have been pumping in right now under higher pressure to try and kill the well. And therefore, the flow rates that they're seeing are potentially higher than they were earlier in the past month, when, among other things, it's likely that the orifices through which the oil and gas were leaking into the Gulf were smaller.
What is your assessment of the accusations from people like Senator David Vitter that the media is being restricted in some way?
You know, I have no clue on that. The only thing I think I've seen one occasion where I think it was a CBS crew, was told they couldn't be somewhere, and there was a very rapid response to that said that was not at BP's instruction. But you know, other than that one incident, I have not got any experience or knowledge of what actually is going on in regard to press restrictions.
The oil itself that is in the Gulf of Mexico, does anybody know how much is in the Gulf of Mexico and where it is, not just on the surface, but at depth? I spoke with Matt Simmons on my old media program, the Dylan Ratigan show on MSNBC, about a river of oil or a lake of oil that's 3,300 feet beneath the surface. Are you familiar with this?
I saw some press reports on it. I think part of the problem there is, you know, we don't know what the density of the oil is in some of these plumes. At this stage, we just don't have enough instrumentation. It's going to take a fair amount of time, a fair number of survey boats out there to actually go and monitor what the actual oil concentrations are so that we can get a much better sense of how and where the oil is moving. At the present time, we don't have that information. We really desperately need it, but you know, that's something that's still in development.
And what is your sense of the current containment strategy for the spill, not only on the surface, but for the plumes traveling wherever they may be beneath the surface?
Okay, well, the typical plume, I beg your pardon, the typical, the barriers they're putting in, these floating berms, seem to work fairly well as long as the wave height is no more than 4 inches. Unfortunately, at the very beginning of the spill, the height of the waves was more than that for quite a considerable period of time. So the original booms they put around the spill weren't very effective because the water sensibly washed the oil over them because the waves were too high. Some of that material is now reaching shore. I have to say I'm a bit befuddled because I don't understand why, if they could see that it was coming that way, there weren't booms put along some of these marshlands that are now being shown to be full of oil. How come there weren't some booms put in to protect those parts of the waterfront at an earlier stage? I don't understand why that wasn't done.
Yeah, and my last question for you, as we look at going back to the news of the day, we look at the Top Kill effort. Obviously, they're pumping this mud into the well to try to reduce the pressure to the point where it is zero, is my understanding, and then they have to put a hard cap, a cement cap, on the well. Can you walk us through, do you have a sense of what the riskiest aspects of what remains of this procedure are? If Top Kill fails, at what intervals or what intersections in that process is that failure most likely?
Okay, there are a number of different things as the procedure went through that folk were concerned about. Initially, what they're trying to do is to put enough mud into the well, and the mud weight is about twice that of seawater and is sensibly almost equivalent to the weight of the rock that sits above the actual oil in the reservoir a couple of miles below the seabed. What you have to do is to put a mud of sufficient density into the well that the total weight of that column is higher at the bottom than the pressure on the fluid in the reservoir. Once you can get that established, then there's no driving force to force oil out of the reservoir back into the well.
Understood. And we're almost there. Is that correct?
Yeah, they've almost got that done. The problem I think that they've run into, among other things, is that the leak is bigger than they thought it was. And while it's okay while they're pumping mud in, the point is that they now want to put a cement cap in. And you can't make, this is in part conjecture on my part, but if you've still got a leak that's flowing at, more than 100 gallons a minute, then you've got a problem that about 60% of the stuff that you're putting into the well is going to go out through the leaks. And so what they've decided to do before they actually put the cement in, now that they've got the well partially under control, is to pump some, they're calling it debris, but it's actually probably very specifically designed pieces of material. They're going to try pumping those into the blowout preventer, which is the big thing that sits on top of the well at the bottom of the seabed, in order to try and close up some of the passages going through that blowout preventer so that they can reduce the total volume of leaks. And once they do that, then they can slow down the flow rate through. They can then not lose nearly as much cement when they actually do the pumping job and actually establish and hold the cement plug in place until it sets up.
Understood. Listen, Dave, I have been following the oil drum on Twitter since this entire affair began, and you have just been an incredible resource of information for so many people, both people like myself inside of the media and others who simply have a very keen interest in staying appraised of what is going on. Your expertise is truly invaluable, and your willingness to share it as freely as you are and the way that you do cannot be underestimated. Dave, thank you so much, not only for joining us this afternoon here on the Young Turks, but also for what you're doing every day at theoildrum.com. Thank you very much, Dave Summers.